There's often this is sort of building on what you've been saying, but you often see in the New Testament and the different counsels that are given to men and women, or husbands and wives. They are obviously all the virtues apply, right, to both men and women, but in different, you might say in different modes, perhaps. But you do see consistently different counsels given by the epistle writers of the New Testament. It's interesting to think about the fact that that husbands and wives might be living the same virtues in different ways. So in Cassie Canubi, Pope Pius XI, he's talking about authority and obedience in marriage, and he qualifies this idea of subjection of the wife. He says it doesn't take away her liberty and her dignity as a human person. It doesn't mean that she has to obey every request of her husband if it's not in harmony with right reason or with her dignity. It doesn't mean that she should be treated as a minor, because as somebody who doesn't have mature judgment. But then he says but it forbids that exaggerated liberty which cares not for the good of the family. It forbids that in this body, which is the family, the heart be separated from the head, to the great detriment of the whole body and the proximate danger of ruin. And this is the part that I want to emphasize here. He says, for if the man is the head, the woman is the heart, and as he occupies the chief place in ruling, so she may and ought to claim for herself the chief place in love. And so that's another interesting example of that asymmetry that you talk about. And I know that you've talked about these sort of different modalities of love and marriage, but I'd like to go into that a little bit more. Like, why is it that love, expresses itself in these different ways, and respect? Because women are told often in the New Testament to respect their husbands, but of course the husband is supposed to respect his wife as well. So why is it that why is it that we shouldn't just sort of flatten in the way that people often want to and just say, yes, of course, they're both supposed to love and respect each other, because that's how Christians are supposed to relate to each other.
Right.
And why is it that it's sort of one aspect is emphasized?
Yeah. And I think, again, synonyms can help here. If a man tends to identify, and again, there's dangers in over identifying with your work. There's truth in identifying with your body and identifying with your work. The ultimate truth is somewhere in between, but women have that emphasis in identifying more with our body and man with his work. So if he does identify with his work, when what he does, okay, is respected, when it's appreciated, and that word appreciated, I always connect with gratitude, when someone receives it well, right, freely receives it well. When that happens, the man feels affirmed. And it was kind of a breakthrough for me to realize, wait a minute, when a man is respected, that's how he experiences love. I think women, we make more of a distinction. I do deserve respect, and great, but we tend to distinguish it from love, because women tend to crave love in the form of a gift. We crave the person, the relationship. We want the gift of the person. So the fact that bodily we're sort of geared toward receptivity, spiritual we want to receive. So I need signs of that, right? Whether it's loving words and a date or flowers and, whatever my love language is, right? It tends to be receptive in nature. And so there is, and again, when I mentioned that about the thing about respect, a man will always think that he needs to earn the respect, right? He's got to do something that earns the respect. But women don't. Like, as a matter of fact, like when I tell my daughters, here, you got to demand respect, right? You don't usually hear guys going around demanding respect. They're trying to do something that sort of earns it, that gains them respect. Whereas women, we say, hey, respect yourself, because if you respect yourself, he's going to take that cue and think, oh, she values herself. Oh, I will value her too. So even the way that we talk about respect with women is different. And that's actually something I'd like to look into further. But for the moment, I'd say to talk about the concept of respect for a guy, when he experiences respect, he feels loved. That's not the same. A woman doesn't just want to experience respect. She does, but she wants the gift of the person. When she's given something, when she is receiving, she feels loved. And so the fact that we understand, the different ways in which we operate as the masculine and the feminine, it's just not going to look the same on both sides. And again, when you talked about the family, sort of the man being the head, woman being the heart, I'm reminded of something, and this is terrible, speaking of paraphrasing. There was a study written, I think this was probably in the late 90s, early 2000s, so I'm not quoting who these researchers were, but it was a book from a group of people that call themselves difference feminists. Are you familiar with this, Thomas? Like, calling themselves feminists, but willing to recognize like a difference. We're not identical. And there was some sort of study done where there were kids at play, and they found that schoolboys were able to sustain a game with a finite set of rules at recess for a super long time. They just kept following the rules and they played for a long time. They found that girls were not able to sustain a game with rules for all that long. Why? They were constantly adjusting and breaking the rules because, well, so-and-so got his feelings hurt, so we're going to give him another turn. We're going to give her another turn at bat. Or this person, she's being mean. Let's let the other girl have another try. Like it was in the name of sort of righting wrongs. And what the study ended up saying was that, well, the boys seemed to have what they called an ethics of justice, sort of directing the way they played the game. And women displayed what they called an ethics of care, because they were breaking the rules because it had to do with people's feelings and caring about how people felt. My issue is, in the end, they concluded that the ethics of care was superior to the ethics of justice. When actually, what we need is both. Oh my goodness, right? If we didn't have a sense of justice and order, what that would do, right? Our feelings, and you can see disaster on both sides. We need both. But to me, that sort of reflected, there is a certain tenderness to people and their feelings that women have. We have a sensitivity. We can read faces better. We can intuit things. Sometimes our kids don't even have to explain something to us, and we kind of get it. And those are some sort of feminine gifts that we have and that we can bring into the home. In terms of the overall sort of tenderness, but it's useless without that overall structure of justice and structure of order that the masculine perspective brings. And so we need both. And again, coming back to the fact that it's all about this union, preserving the unity of this family. I once had a student say something after we were talking about some of these things in my class, and she said something about, so women have to submit to men. And I said, wait a minute. Wives are called to submit to their husbands. It's not like every man and every woman, oh, I'm going to submit to you. It's not that. It's right. The attitudes that support the unity of this relationship, right? The sacrifice and the receptivity that is required for this union, right? Certainly being aware of the gifts and strengths of the other sexes can help in our friendships and our business relationships, understanding why men seem to react badly to this or women seem to react badly to it. Like, that's good. But it's in virtue of the union. It's always about being a part of something beyond yourself that includes you, but also extends beyond you, that these dispositions are required to sustain.
Though I do think there is a study to be made of how these things play out in maybe a less pronounced way just in the world at large, how these differences play out, not in terms of a strict like authority obedience relationship, but we see that in even in like religious orders, the charisms of male and female religious orders, for instance. So that would be
definitely, and that's what I'm saying.
Interesting,
like,
a whole
an
other
awareness
discussion
of
to open.
Some things, I once worked for an all-female organization, and we had really, really, really long meetings. And they kind of wandered. Okay, so we used to sometimes laugh, but like I said, keeping aware, or an awareness, having an awareness of sometimes the things that are that tend to be in general sort of important or priorities of the opposite sex, is that's only going to, I think, help our relationships in society. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.